Now recognizes the Honorable Gentlewoman from Texas, Ms. Garcia, who is Vice Chair of the Subcommittee on Diversity and Inclusion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to all the witnesses who are appearing before us today. It is great to see that we are continuing this discussion in this second series of discussions on the enduring legacy of slavery. I am reminded over and over that racism and the lasting horrors of slavery are built into every fiber of our financial system. The topic of today's hearing and the subcommittee's research into the history of financial institutions profiting from slavery reminds me of this even further. Our nation's history in this regard is dark. We must work tirelessly to right the wrongs of the past because they are not the past. The lasting impacts of slavery continue to impact Americans every single day of our lives, and particularly in the financial sector. Throughout my time in Congress, I've committed myself to equity in financial services, striving for financial health and success for all Americans. During part one of this hearing series, I asked about tangible steps that we could take to make the finance system more equitable. In reviewing today's committee materials, I understood that they need to continue with that line of questioning because concrete, actionable progress is still urgently needed. I think some of you mentioned some of this being insufficient, and I agree with you. Dr. Darity, of the financial institutions surveyed by this subcommittee, a concerning low number of companies with ties to slavery have taken real concrete steps to enhance their community investments, or as a great example that you used was, dollars to the endowment funds of the historically black colleges. In an era of public commitments to diversity and inclusion from industry giants, but perhaps too little action, what concrete actionable steps can financial institutions do, like immediately, without us in Congress dictating what they should or shouldn't do?
I think immediately they could take steps to raise the endowment levels of historically black colleges and universities to a position that would be comparable to peer historically or predominantly white institutions.
Right.
That's a step that they could take immediately.
Right. Is there any other example that you can give us?
Of other types of steps that they could take?
Yes, sir.
Well, they certainly could make sure that they're in some sense that they could get their own houses in order, in the sense of ensuring that their own personnel, staff, and leadership is reflective of the composition of the national community at large. And that's a diversity and inclusion project.
Correct, and we do have a subcommittee on that. We work on that real hard. Ms. Roberts, we have data that shows that Black and other minority populations have extremely reduced access to lending services and other forms of capital necessary to help businesses thrive. In practice, how do we address this? What can Congress do, and what can banks do to ensure access to capital is more equitable?
Thanks for the question. Ensuring that all communities have access to capital could require something as easy as investigating their own sort of openness and accessibility to different communities, ensuring that information is available in community in which, based geographically and based on neighborhood, in the language that is spoken by the community that's relevant, and ensuring that services are accessible with little or to no financial barrier in order to get in the door. That's good for banks' business. It would ensure that they have sort of a robust customer base that they're building up. But I also want to point out that shareholders have power in this capacity as well. In different financial institutions, shareholders are making demands all the time of business practice and ensuring that institutions are behaving responsibly in terms of the environment, in terms of investments. They could also be doing so to ensure that financial services are accessible to a wide range of communities.
Thank you. Ms. Roberts, I wanted to quickly talk about today's current redlining. It's no longer people getting together and actually drawing red lines on a map. It's done with algorithms and online applications that will know who to invite in and who not to. What can we do to have better access to home ownership despite some of these barriers that seem to be cropping up and we just can't seem to, it's what I call the high-tech redlining.
Ensuring that financial institutions are not using algorithms in a discriminatory way is a really crucial part of this. But there's also still a human element. Significant research has shown the lower valuation that happens when a home valuator or assumes or knows that the owner of the home is Black. That's shown significant impact on neighborhood-based home price increases over the past decades. So federal government efforts to ensure that there is a check on valuation discrimination is a really crucial part here, as well as providing upfront capital and support. That's happened at the local levels. For example, the District of Columbia has been working on that significantly to increase the support for first-time homebuyers and others who have been excluded from the intergenerational transfer of wealth that Professor Darity so clearly has articulated here.
Thank you. I think my time is up, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
The gentlelady